There's a renewed spotlight on digital with COVID-19. We are looking at a new age of opportunity. Oil and gas companies are using this crisis to redefine their reasons for being and their basis for distinctiveness. Here's a global humanitarian crisis combined with an unprecedented demand drop and a supply shock. What is the way forward with digital? Hello and welcome. I'm Garima, and joining me on the Dais today is Mr. Pratap Nair, founder and CEO at Ingenero. Thank you so much for joining us today, sir.
Thank you, Garima.
What inspired you to be a part of this magnificent industrial landscape?
Well, partly, I guess it's the education. I did my chemical engineering from IIT Bombay, and then got my doctorate from Rice University in Houston, also in chemical engineering. And then I stayed back, and that I think became my reason for being, the ikigai, if you will. I really started liking the work in the industry, continued to work there in this industry. And over time, yes, the passion, kept increasing, and I just stayed with it. And no regrets. I love being here.
So how long has it been since you have been a part of this industry?
Well, I've been in this industry for the last 32 years.
Wow.
Man, I'd forgotten about that until you asked me.
That's really wonderful. 32 years. And if I may ask, what has been that one thing that you really absolutely love about this industry? What is that one thing that fascinates you the most about the oil and gas industry?
Well, if you look at it, a lot of what we use in our day-to-day, the source ultimately, this is the precursor. So whether it's energy or even products, the plastics and all that, a lot of it really comes through this industry. So however you can make it, the constant drive for those of us who are in this industry has been to try and improve the efficiencies, improve the friendliness to the environment, things like that. It can be done. I mean, this industry, I know in the past, has sometimes got a bad rap in terms of environmental pollutions and so on. But that's where this whole field of chemical engineering and how you apply technology could definitely make things better for something that we all use in our day-to-day and absolutely need. It's come to that. So that's really, I'm excited to be part of that.
Lovely. That's lovely, sir. And now talking about Ingenero, what is the story of this organization? What is the major area of focus if we talk about your company?
Going back, this is a company that I started along with a business partner of mine, Kishore Patil. We're both IIT alumni, it was different years. And then a third partner joined us. Now he's based in Houston, Jim Brigman, a little later. Right. So the three of us really have developed this company along with the entire team. We've got a wonderful team that supports us, and that's what makes it happen. So the whole idea behind Ingenero when we first started was being exposed to the industry in the West. I was working there for several years. I saw, if you looked at the demographics of expertise that was available, that was kind of dwindling, and people were calling it the grandpa boom, over time, because a lot of the very experienced people in that geography were retiring. It was the exact opposite here in India, where you had a lot of very good engineers coming out, trained. And so that was, and we were seeing all the, the connectivity had improved, internets were, and developing and sending services or other support technologies across the internet was becoming more and more feasible. And that was kind of the crux of it. We started delivering high-end knowledge-based support to a lot of the chemical plants there. We used to take the data, analyze it on a regular basis, on a daily basis actually, and provide support and feedback to better operate the plants in a more safe manner, higher efficiencies, more environmentally friendly. So that was how we started Ingenero. Since then, today we broadly work in three different areas. One is we continue this area, which has really now evolved into, became a natural for digitalization. The second area is safety. We do a lot of work in the safety area for a lot of the chemical industry. And the third is we provide engineering support, whether it's design or operations engineering. Broadly, these are the areas we're involved with today.
Okay, sir. Since the office is there in different parts of the world, it's one office is based in Houston and one is in India as well.
Right.
So how do you see any difference in the ways of working if we talk about the West and in our country? How do you see a difference between the industrial landscape per se?
Well, there's actually a common thread, and which is what makes the engineering and the technology part is fairly common, if you will. Certainly, there are cultural differences. The main differences, if you will, are more cultural and understanding communication, across the border. That typically is the main challenge. But once you kind of bridge that, the underlying technology, underlying what is required to make things happen, whether it's to manufacture a chemical, do it safely, there's no difference. It's universal.
Right.
So that was the beauty of it. The key challenge, of course, was to try and see how you could work across cultures.
Right.
And but yeah, technology-wise, everything is the same actually.
Absolutely. And sir, now tell us a bit about your life before starting Ingenero. Tell us about your professional experience, basically, before you started this organization.
Yeah, I mean, because I started my career when I was in Houston. I started out working for a software company, a technology software company catering to the process industry, process manufacturing. So, like I told you earlier, the passion kept growing even with what I was doing. And then for a short while, I was in management consulting for the energy industry. In Houston, I had my own consulting firm with a few partners. And in the mid 90s, I sold that off and came back here, relocated to India. I started working with a pharmaceutical major, the second largest pharmaceutical company here.
Right.
Had various roles with them. Incidentally, it was Kedila. Was in manufacturing, research, development, business development. It was involved with a lot of joint ventures and acquisition of technologies and so on, and left them when I was actually coordinating their management board. I came out to very passionate about this, to start this company along with my partners, as I was telling you.
Right.
So that's kind of my past in a nutshell, if you will.
Yes, yes. And so talking about your personal journey, how difficult has it been for you? What were some of the challenges that you faced while relocating and adjusting to different environments? Because sometimes you're there, sometimes you're here, and the dynamics are totally different. So how has it been for you?
No regrets. If I were to, someone asked me what would you do if you had a chance to redo the whole thing, I don't think I'd make too many changes. Yes, it was a challenge. The work environments are very different. Coming back at that time, I remember a lot of people saying, "Hey, what the hell are you doing?" kind of thing. But it was great because I, had a lot of operating experience in that geography, and then likewise here, I kind of dived into it, and that was it. So that helped, through even when we started this company, that had really helped in a lot of ways. So it wasn't a challenge. I think the move was very smooth for me in a lot of ways, but perhaps it was because I got busy as soon as I came here, and the travel continued. I still travel a lot, and so maybe I didn't notice it. Perhaps my wife and family may say a little differently. I know they had quite a challenging time the first year when we moved back, readjusting. But I think they also adjusted very quickly. Today, it's absolutely everyone's like,
Yes.
they love where they are, and I guess it helped even my kids and all. The adjustment going to a new place is very fast.
Right, right. And sir, I'm just curious because life of a founder, director, CEO is definitely not easy. And you have a family, and how do you get to manage time for them and some time for yourself? If we look at work-life balance and those aspects, how do you manage everything? Because you are organizing so many initiatives in your own company, and then you have a family back home. How do you take care of everything? Do you get some time for yourself?
Certainly, I think that is very important because you really need to strike a balance. Otherwise, you could burn out very quickly.
Right.
Having said that, having two great business partners has helped greatly, because everything doesn't fall on you. You can kind of distribute the
Right.
work and find time for yourself. So that I guess has that really helped versus just trying to do everything yourself. Being able to also get the right people. We were extremely lucky. We got some really very good, talented, motivated, and driven people who really took ownership, and so that helped as well as we were moving along with the company. So these are people who just step in and take the responsibility and run with it. So that also helped greatly. I think the organization. So partly luck, partly things fell in place, I guess. And yeah, I have been able to find the time working as well as being with the family. Of course, I travel a lot, so that way when I come back, I guess I try and maximize time with the family as well. But yes, I mean, you're absolutely right. When building a company from scratch, there are efforts. I mean, it
Right.
just doesn't fall into place. There's a lot of luck, a lot of blessings, and hard work, I would imagine.
Because these are the support systems we have. Basically, sometimes the time is not on our side, sometimes the situation is not on our side, so it's very important that we have a very, very strong support system in place. So that's wonderful. That's wonderful that you have such good colleagues and you have such a great strong family. So now, sir, moving on, if we look at the COVID-19 situation, how are you looking at this crisis? Because this is something which we have never witnessed before. This is totally a different situation. And the industry is still trying to figure out what the dynamics are and how are we going to move forward from here. What is your take on the crisis, basically?
Yeah, and this is something that was completely, it's taken everyone by surprise in a lot of ways.
Right.
Certainly, it has impacted the industry. The thing is, we don't know where it's going, because one, yes, it's a virus. From what you hear, it's not something that's going to disappear overnight. Even if we come up, with a vaccine, which may take some time, I don't think things are going to just completely disappear. Just like the flu, it's just that the flu may not have been as virulent in a lot of ways. This is really a new normal that we'll have to likely start getting used to. used to. I also see that you don't know. I mean, it's no longer a science fiction type scenario. We could have more viruses of this sort from what people are talking about.
Right.
So it's really for us to adapt, and so from the industry, it has certainly impacted the industry in two main ways. One is, of course, the sudden drop in demand. So if you look at even the chemical and refining and fuels, energy industry, there's a cascading effect all the way back. And so plants have to run at part capacity. So suddenly you have to start very quickly changing your plans to fit the new financial situation, fit the new operating situation. And the second thing is availability of people has become a challenge, right? I mean, everyone has to work from home in a lot of ways. So availability on site of people has become more and more of a challenge. That's the way work has been done so far. That's the paradigm.
Right.
So something has to change,
Yes.
obviously. So those are challenges as far as the industry is concerned. That's kind of my view. And so we all have to really see how we can quickly change and adapt to the new normal.
Right. And now, sir, lockdown 5.0 is being discussed in India. What do you think about this? Because definitely businesses are struggling because of lockdown as well. And we don't know what's next coming up for us. How do you see the lockdown situation affecting the businesses, and what do you think is the way forward from here?
I mean, yeah, certainly the lockdown, has impacted a lot of businesses in different ways.
Right.
Um, if you look at a lot of the brick and mortar companies, they absolutely needed people on site. That's been the way they always work. There are businesses where you do need people running, maybe logistics, distribution, and some of that. So certainly it has impact, and people not being out there buying things. So the economy, the circling, that obviously has slowed down. So obviously, like I said before, there's a cascading effect to all of this.
Right.
And so yeah, I mean, in terms of whether the lockdown, it's a very difficult. I mean, I actually empathize with the government and the governing people, because it's not easy. I mean, this is not something that we've seen in the last at least 100 years,
Right.
in our lifetimes. So it's new. We don't know. There's this toss up between life and livelihood.
Right.
So how do
Absolutely.
you draw that balance? And that, I think, is the biggest challenge today. That politically. So I mean, we can sit here and easily say we could have done this, we could have done that, but
Right.
it's not an easy question to really answer. So yeah, like I said, we may have this kind of constrained working from home. For us as a business, we've kind of adapted to that, and we are able to do that by virtue of the type of work we are in.
Right.
We were able to really move all our 450 employees to actually work from home. It was a little bit of a challenge in the transition, but I think that's been streamlined now. So the distributed workforce and work environment is something that I think we've adapted to, and it's something eventually I think a lot of the industry may have to kind of really pick up on that. And it's possible today, given the technology that is available.
Right. And sir, since these dramatic changes have taken place and we are discussing about the changes in ways of working as well, do you see some new business models coming up with during the crisis and post the crisis? Because we have already seen, we are already observing a lot of things changing around us, be it in terms of the traditional models of working and the business models as well. So how do you see, or do you see actually any new business model coming up?
Absolutely. I mean, there will be, new business models that, I mean, it has to happen, if people have to, survive.
Right,
Just like this work from home,
right,
in this thing. So, and fortunately, in the last year or couple of years, there's been a lot of hype on what people are calling, digitalization.
mm,
And that actually has been very timely. I mean, the technology is all there. I mean, the lower cost of computing, the higher speeds of connectivity, low cost of connecting, all this, being able to transmit, connect people halfway across the world very seamlessly. So the technology is all there, and so if you really look at it over the last few years, the revolution has been kind of, I'd say, simmering.
right,
But technology was never really the bottleneck. It was always people. So what this may do is really remove that bottleneck, because
right,
people will have to learn to, change
right,
to be able to survive and to be able to go forward. And so I think the whole digitalization space is going to evolve, and that is going to be a very important area,
right,
uh, and associated business model changes to work along with the availability of real-time information, distributed workforces, which are all made feasible. That's going to be the new way of working across a lot of the industry, and certainly in the process industry. That is going to be something that will be adopted very quickly, I think.
right, sir. And a lot of industry leaders also comment that, technology is the easy part, but how do we take care of the change management, the culture change, and the people? How do we convince them to get used to these new technologies? What is your take on that?
No, absolutely. It's always how do you manage the change? How do you bring the people along? Because change is the most difficult thing for people. I mean, if they're, it's I am. It's like the boiling frog fable.
Right,
Where it was a situation where, yeah, the environment is slowly changing. The frog is very comfortable as the temperature goes up. I can readjust to the environment, and but if it sticks around, the frog gets boiled to extinction, right?
right,
But today we're in a scenario where it's like the frog is dropped into a pot of boiling water. The frog's going to jump out, right? So it's the same thing.
yes,
So I think this will be really an impetus for change. There will be a drive because there is no option.
right,
So that's another way to fast forward change. Um, Certainly, the old methods of convincing, bringing people along, making everyone see the merit, all that continues. But this is an added way that may speed up some of those changes that are going to happen.
absolutely, sir. And how do you see digital navigating the companies through COVID-19? How do you see that evolving in these times?
Uh, yes, like I said, the whole situation almost necessitates that,
Right,
because earlier the whole paradigm was, if you have data and in one place, or some activity happening in one place, the experts in certain areas, whether it's planning or uh, optimizing something, or efficiency, safety, the experts had to be near the data. But today, with as you start implementing digitized systems, digitalization, connecting things, Internet of Things, and so on, the experts no longer need to be near the data. The data can go to the experts. So that again is a classic where it allows distributed work environments.
Right.
What that does for us, there are benefits to that because the availability of experts need not always be there in one particular geography.
Right.
Uh, the whole globe, the whole globe is your
Right.
workforce field.
Right.
So they're they're available in one way or the other. Two, you can take advantage of cost differences across geographies. People say, "Oh my God, now our cost structures are under pressure," right? So one way is to try and get better rates and things like that. Is the traditional way, but there are other ways of looking at it. You can spread through different geographies, take advantage of that. So that view, instead of doing everything, not invented here attitude or doing everything yourself, um, maybe things that people may be more open to or be forced to be more open to be able to survive, I think.
Right. That's a
So
great point, actually. Yes.
yeah, so these are all ways. I mean, I think things will evolve. Technology being there, available, certainly will fast forward a lot of these things.
Right, absolutely. And sir, if we talk about the role of Ingenero in terms of the digital journey of oil and gas companies and other enterprises that you're supporting, where do you see Ingenero in that situation?
Yes, one of the things particularly in this process manufacturing area, over the last say 20 years, a lot of the operations and things have been digitized,
Mhm.
not digitalized, but
Right,
digitized,
right,
where everything, the data has been collected. So you have a huge amount of data available.
right,
Data is being collected every second. So the velocity with which it is being collected and the variety of data that's collected is huge. But if you look at it, 90% of that data is just archived.
right,
No one even looks at it.
right,
So that is there, and there's a lot of gems of information in there. But the difficult part is it is known that about 20-25% of that data is incorrect. There are, it's fraught with errors.
right,
If you knew where the errors were, well, it was easy, but you don't. You don't know, of the 100, which 25 are incorrect. And so if you take the data and try to use it in the traditional digitalization sense from the last 2-3 years, if you will, in this industry, you could get information that is way misleading. And that could have two things. One is, yeah, you're doing wrong things, which would be counterproductive. And two, the whole digitalization drive in companies I have seen may take a pause because they say, whoa, this thing's really thrown us back.
right,
So what is important there, that's a key piece, is being able to take that data, analyze it. So advanced analytics of that data, which can be done automatically with the analytical technologies that are available today. And then that data is converted into decision quality information where you can hang your hat on.
right,
You can make decisions, it's ready, decision ready kind of information. So that's a very important piece in this whole digital. So when people talk of digitalization, it's not just about connecting and sending data across to across the globe, but there are certain key pieces. Now, this is something in a way we've been doing the last 20 years because we've been taking data from, say, we've been able to, as a team, sit here, analyze data halfway across the world in a plant, say in Houston, Texas,
right,
sitting in Bombay, and we've been able to identify the smallest things like pinhole leaks and so on, just through analysis. So there are safety repercussions, there are efficiency repercussions, all kinds of things. So this is something we've been through, and so that is something now we're utilizing that experience, combining. We've been doing the data science, we've been doing that, but we're automating it and now providing solutions, what people call digitalized solutions, which fits beautifully into this whole digitalization map, if you will,
yes,
particularly for the process manufacturing industry.
right, right.
So
And
that's really where we fit in, and we've increasingly seen that we're playing a role with companies,
Yes.
whether it's as part of their strategy mapping of this or even the implementation. A very efficient way to implement this and make it actually work and successful.
That's really wonderful, because some time back I had read a report which said that it is scary that the amount of data that the industry actually has, and how minuscule of it is actually analyzed. It is scary to even understand that it's very, very narrow. Data analysis has not been there on a very, very large scale. So what Ingenero is doing in this space, it's really helping people to make data driven informed decisions, as you mentioned. And sir, now help us understand what are the specific offerings of your organization in this digital space.
So yes, we like I said, we've been working with companies in this the process manufacturing industry. This has been fairly nascent in this industry. This whole digitalization really started in discrete manufacturing,
Right.
with the car manufacturers and so on, and the process manufacturers were a little late getting into it. But anyway, that we've not been into this that many years, as even in automobiles. So we've been part, having had this history, and people, some of the early adopters, having tripped on some of these things that I was just mentioning. We've been pulled in, in the early phases to try and work with them through this whole digitalization map and so on. What we've evolved now from the service, where we were just doing the analytics with the multi-dimensional team sitting here, we've automated it, and now that's what we're offering as solutions to the process manufacturing industry, whereby you have what we call intelligent decision making software solution, which will take data, churn through all the numbers, and again, since the machine is doing that, like you were earlier seeing, that it's not just a minuscule amount of all the data that's available. You're taking everything,
Right.
sorting out, figuring out what makes sense, and then converting that into. So behind the scenes, there are a lot of models that are running, whether it's data-driven models or even some fundamental type models are running to make this happen. So that is one major offering in the digitalization area that we now have with and we've implemented with a couple of customers. And the key piece that makes us very unique is to go from what you have. There are a lot of technology tools available. I say the tools are like atoms.
Right.
But what people need is a solution that they can directly use to get the augmented intelligence. That's like a molecule. So going from the atom to the molecule, there's something, there's activation energy. But in our case, going from the technology tools to the software solution that gives the direct augmented intelligence is a process that we call decision excellence engineering process. And that is really where we're unique, because of all the experience that we've got. And that's really what makes this viable and actually provide results.
Right.
So that's this, that's what we are offer to the industry, and we've been doing several projects of late in that area.
Right, sir. And sir, since you are dealing with data at such a massive scale, are there any particular threats or challenges that you experience in your operations? Any kind of attack, cyber attack, if we talk about any threat, any particular threat?
Yes, this is something, given the nature of this industry, that is something we take extreme caution and care. I mean, the data security. Even working with our clients, each client, they all have their IT security norms and so on. So we obviously have to comply to that. We have our own, compliance and ISO certifications for that, of managing the security. this is the business we've been in for 20 years. And just imagine we've been taking data from live facilities, chemical plants, and we've had access to that. So of course, clients come, they go through our systems and so on. So that's very, very important. And so setting that up and being ahead of the curve, because there are a lot of people who are obviously working with different motivations, is very important for us. So that's part and parcel of what we have to do. I mean, there's no
Right.
nothing else. We can't cut corners there.
Absolutely, absolutely, sir. Now, moving forward, how do you think organizations can fast forward the adoption of digitalization?
Yes, when one approach to digitalization, which some of the large companies, they may have tried that, is hey, digitalization is good. We take the leap of faith, and there have been mixed results there. Some people, it has worked for some people. It has worked in some areas within the company. It hasn't worked in other areas. But now, now people, I think, will have to be a lot more cost conscious and efficient, given the pressures. And anyway, earlier also it was the most efficient way to do it is you can actually go from when making the plan for doing a digitalization program. You don't need to go and go across the entire organization and quickly try and put everything. You identify places where you really have problems, which can be possibly solved by closer to real-time information flow, or we know what digitalization can do for you, the connectivity, the extent of expertise available, so on. If these things they know can solve certain issues of theirs or can provide new revenue generation opportunities or value opportunities, those can be identified. Right. You may not know the exact number, but you have an approximate idea of this is what you can get. Then you work backwards and say, how do I digitalize this? So you can digitalize pieces and then expand across the organization. Right. And that way you're almost ensured of success when you start. And so typically any program like this hits a roadblock when something is implemented and then you see you're getting nothing out of it. Right. So here you're almost by default making sure you're as you go on you're getting value out of it. Right. So that's an approach I think that will be required for this whole digitalization piece to really get implemented. Certainly, there would be a drive given that there's this additional need with the new normal. So that would give it an impetus and push. But if this is done, I think that the combination would you'd see more rapid implementation of these kind of concepts and techniques, which will definitely help the working and adapting to these new situations. Definitely. And sir, now as we have been discussing how difficult the situation is, how things have dramatically changed, and we all are adjusting to new realities. What is your message for the founders, executive managers, and CEOs who are struggling with their businesses at this point of time? Well, I'm not sure I'm the right person to ask, but yes, whatever I can, my 2-bit I can provide here. Someone who's starting up something, certainly the founders really need to be looking at. These are the new challenges, so they start thinking in terms of the old business way of doing business, and then trying to come up with solutions there. There may be some disappointment going missing. So, how do you adapt and see this is what the new requirements are? These are what the technologies that are available. How do you fit that? I mean, that kind of thinking, I think, would certainly help. And I'm sure entrepreneurs who who really, they would do that. So I don't think I'm telling them anything. There's no gems of information there, but certainly that is going to be required, and you see a lot of that happening. I mean, even today, a lot of the online couriers and a lot
Right,
of things that have come up. Right, brilliant. I mean,
right.
not rocket science, but still very innovative use of, and that's what may be required. As far as the executives and managers are concerned in companies, I think it will be useful and important for them, given the changes. How do you keep up with these changes? So be a lot more open. There are a lot of business models. It's not like they haven't been around or talked about, but it's like I said, people have been a bottleneck. So being a lot more open to ideas and not sticking to this is the way I've always done it. So I'm going to continue to do that. That may have issues for the business as a whole. So there has to be a lot more openness to say even things like distributed workforce, utilizing outside expertise to along with the internal expertise, working together, coordinating better. Things that may have been pushed back on earlier may be more of a need of the hour, and so definitely executives and managers certainly would, I believe, would need to think that way. Otherwise, it may be difficult for people to evolve and survive.
That's very true, sir. And that's a very, very strong message, because this is an adversity and people need to be creative and do whatever best they can. So that's a very, very empowering message, I would say. And sir, I'm truly thankful to you for joining us today, sharing your journey with me, and for sharing the story of Ingenero with me, most importantly, helping us understand the dynamics, helping us understand how significant a contribution Ingenero is playing in this whole crisis, and not just during the crisis, but also moving forward from here. It has been an absolute pleasure talking to you today. Thank you so much for joining.
Likewise, Garima. Thank you. Appreciate this whole discussion.
Thank you so much, sir.
Bye bye.